After being a season ticket holder in the Gladys Street for a number of years, how much of a lift did David Moyes' appointment bring to the club?
For me, it was an absolutely massive lift. One of the most heartbreaking periods of following Everton was that during the previous era, Walter Smith had got us good for a little while, but then it unfortunately started to abuse a team which seemed scared of the opposition all the time. I was becoming personally convinced that we'd be getting relegated. There was no passion in the team. And when Moyes came and suddenly transformed everything so quickly, made it clear from the word go that the players were spending time thinking about what they were going to do to the opposition instead of what looked like was the case, where they seemed to be worrying all week what the opposition might do to us, and was setting up just to take into account the opposition's strengths instead of play to our own strengths. It was massive. He was young, fearless. For him it was a step up, and it was a big experiment almost for him, so he didn't mind. Every game was a new challenge, whereas I think Walter was unfortunately thinking about previous success he'd had and was really disappointed that he was unable to replicate that at Everton for lots of reasons beyond his control, because he was a good and experienced manager.
So were you surprised when he was named the manager given his lack of experience in the Premier League?
No, because I had heard through following websites and heard people talking that he was something of an up-and-coming manager, that he was quite ambitious, that he was keen on being around in the Northwest, and I thought that Everton would go for a relative unknown. I don't know why. I just thought that they would struggle to get someone. They needed someone to break the mould a little bit, so a young up-and-coming manager he fitted the bill perfectly.
And after 11 successful years, is it clear that the club made the right decision? And what qualities do you think he brings as a manager?
For me, definitely. There's been a number of occasions over the last 11 years where I've had reason to say thanks very much to David Moyes, because for me he gave back my club. He gave me loads of players over these 11 years who are clearly, yes, they're professionals and they're very highly paid, but many of them play as if they understand what it's like to be a supporter, and that's not the case in a lot of clubs. And they brought back the passion, a sense of history, a sense of it being a special club, okay, not achieving as much cup-wise as we should do, but nonetheless an excellent club to play for and to support. Still the fourth most trophied club in England, despite having won so little recently. So yeah, he brought back a tremendous sense of pride.
And when he was appointed, he immediately labelled Everton as the People's Club. Do you think by doing this he automatically endeared himself to Evertonians?
Definitely. I don't know whether it was a very clever remark or just a very lucky remark, but it did play to our sense of being a little bit special, a little bit mad. At times you need a lot of patience to be an Evertonian, but we do think that we're a club worth supporting, and the fact that he recognised that there is something about being involved in football and being a supporter. It's not just about trophies and not just about winning things, but there's something special about just loving your club. He touched that nerve, which was perfect for the Evertonians.
And how does his style of play differ from previous managers at the football club?
Well, in terms of his style of play, I think there's been different phases where he likes his teams to press. Okay, that has certainly been true. And that was certainly similar to Joe Royle's team at its best. Less so Walter Smith's, because I felt Walter Smith's team tended to sit and try to take the sting out of the opposition all the time. And so Moyes' teams tend to go up to play higher up the pitch most of the time. And that is when Moyes' teams work best, when they're pressing the team. I think they've mixed it up a bit though. When you see players like Arteta, Pienaar, Morales, Fellaini, fellas like this who are real ball players, Osman, that is a very different side from the first one that he created out of Smith's players, where it was much more functional, much more rigid according to the system, and there's a lot more on the ball in the last 3 or 4 seasons.
Bringing it forward to the present day, we've seen the fans disagree with a number of decisions he's made this season. Do you think that David Moyes still has the 100% backing of the supporters?
The 100% backing? No. I think it's certain that there are a number of people who either have gone off him or have got frustrated that we haven't actually won anything in this period of time. People change their attitudes very quickly in football, and a number of people will point in particular to the Liverpool semi-final last year, where the impression given was that we only believed that we could nick that win and one goal had to be enough, whereas the fans truly believed in this team, that we were a team that could play football and take the game to Liverpool and absolutely beat them by playing proper football. And when it appeared that maybe we tried to nick it, a few people began to lose a little bit of hope and faith at that point, but the majority are solidly behind.
And as you say, some fans believe that it is time for a change at Goodison. Do you personally believe he is still the man to lead the club to glory?
Yeah, I do. I think he's more than clever enough as a manager to reinvent himself. I think he has to think hard about what he wants to achieve over the next 5 years, and I can understand him hanging on to see whether the conditions will actually exist for him to achieve what he wants to achieve and have what would effectively be a third 5-year plan for Everton. And if that's in place, I think he can pull off a further era of success at Everton, one which will involve trophies, but I think everyone has to believe in the good players he's got there.
And while these contract talks continue and they continue to stall, do you believe that he will still be able to manage at the start of next season?
I do, but I would have to say that people do change, things change in football, so I would not absolutely bet my mortgage on it, but I actually believe he will be able to manage at the start of next season.
And David Moyes has long been touted as the successor for Sir Alex Ferguson at Old Trafford. Do you think he will manage at the highest level at some stage in his career?
I think he will do. What is required, though, for him is more proven success in Europe, whether that's through Everton becoming European qualifiers more regularly, or whether it's, as has been hinted at, that he fancies trying his hand elsewhere in another country for a season or two, or maybe both over a period of time. I think that has to happen, because the truth is the likes of United are looking for Mourinho, Lippi, Capello type managers who have already won the Champions League. They're not going to give any manager a tryout when they're used to operating at that level.
And finally, how far do you think Everton has come under David Moyes' leadership?
We've gone from being perennial relegation candidates for about 8 to 10 years to being a club which is highly thought of on a relatively small budget, which has rediscovered the bond between players and supporters. Admittedly, in an era where there's been a lot of TV money coming in, but I think Everton are now respected throughout football, whereas through most of the 90s we were something of a, are we going to get relegated this year? Well, anyway, the sooner it happens the better, because you don't deserve any more. People don't talk about Everton like that anymore, and that's been his greatest legacy.
That's it, yeah.
Could say thank you.
Cheers, Fran. Thank you for that.
You're welcome.